Hello everybody and welcome to Asgard, and today I'm going to be doing a review of something called the Ip Man Trilogy. Now I don't know if anyone's ever heard of these films before, but they are a series of films starring Donnie Yen. There has since been a fourth film, which I have not been able to see as of yet. I believe the fourth film is going to be the official ending to this series of films, so it'll end as a quadrilogy. However, this came as a set, was about I think $10 when I actually bought these on Blu-ray, and I'd always heard that these movies were very good when it comes to practical effects and using a lot of really awesome, obviously martial arts focused stunt work, and Donnie Yen, of course, being at the focus of that, doing a lot of those stunts, or at least seemingly doing a lot of those stunts himself, which again is not really new to anyone that's been following Donnie Yen. Obviously, he had a stint in Star Wars, playing probably one of the most interesting characters at the very least in a movie called Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, and he showed kind of some of his chops there too, though of course I know that as far as the timeline goes, Ip Man would have predated that, but it's still pretty cool to see this character, and see rather this actor that I've seen in films before, and show off his stuff, to be able to realize that he's actually a really solid dramatic actor too, because in these series of movies, he obviously deals with certain comedic elements. He's not a comedian by any means, but he definitely can play the straight man in any scene, and it's really funny to see how different people and different character actors play off of him in these movies. But he also does a very good job of bringing the heart to the series of movies overall. And so I'm going to do a review of all of the films together, because I do think that all of them pretty much I reach the same conclusion on every single one of them. And so the basic premise is that this man, the Ip Man as he is known, is the person that ended up training Bruce Lee in the art of Wing Chun, which is a form of Kung Fu, and it's the style that was really perfected by the Ip Man, and Bruce Lee actually sought him out to train by him, and when he was around 16, was trained. And so if you wonder who taught Bruce Lee all those moves, and who was responsible for that person, who was responsible for the forms that you see, the Ip Man played a very major role in that. But not only that, but also the Ip Man himself has his own very unique history. Now, it is kind of I've never been someone that dives so much into the history of movies. I kind of like to take what they give me, what the movies actually give me, and if I know something about the history, I can say whether it's true or not. But if I'm not an expert on it, then I try and leave that to the ones that are experts on this part of history. And I definitely think in the second film especially, there are definitely some more elements of Chinese nationalism that I think kind of bleed through the movie, which is a little bit distracting, and it's kind of a little bit on the nose, that obviously it was almost being used as like a propaganda film for Chinese audiences, and for, I guess, outsiders too. But even with the second film falling off of that way, I think all three films have one thing in common, and that is the incredible martial arts. I mean, seriously, the actors they have, the stunt people they have in these movies are all fantastic, and it really is, again, grounded by the performance by Donnie Yen. However, that's really the furthest that I can say as far as this film being good, with one last thing being the theme throughout the entire trilogy of films. And again, I'm assuming it'll be in the fourth film too. Just the theme that they play at the beginning, sometimes it's heard throughout the film, and then at the very end of the movie, is just awesome. It's epic, and it's so much fun to listen to. However, when it comes to things like the script, when it comes to things like the editing, when it comes to other objective film elements, I feel like all three films really, I think, fall apart for the most part. Obviously, Ip Man 1 that came out in 2008, I think, is by far the strongest as far as story goes, as far as the actual objective elements to the film. Ip Man 2, I think, kind of has one of the worst scripts out of all of them, because there is a lot of, just again, a lot of nationalism that seems to come through in the movie, almost to the point of propaganda. These all take place at different times in the Ip Man's life, and so Ip Man 1 takes place during 1937 with the Japanese invasion, so that's an incredibly interesting storyline. Ip Man 2 is in Hong Kong in 1949, and it deals, the main storyline, the main fight that happens in this is between him and basically a United Kingdom boxer. And every person that is a white person, basically they're called foreign devils. Like several different points of the movie, they're always referred to as the foreign devils, and it culminates with a fight between a boxer and obviously Ip Man himself, and it kind of has like this Rocky vibe to it in a lot of ways, which I thought was pretty interesting. And it definitely seems, as I said at the very end, to try and kind of make points overall about national identity. And you see that definitely throughout all three films, but I think most especially in Ip Man 2, it just really comes through a lot in the writing as well. So I think for me personally, I think Ip Man 2 might actually be the weakest of the trilogy, because Ip Man 3 might not have the best story elements. However, certain parts of the nationalism go away, and they make way for some of, I think, the best action. I think as far as when you look to choreography, and when you look to the martial arts that's being used on the film, Ip Man 3 by far has the best fighting sequences out of all three films. Again, all of them have solid fights, but I think Ip Man 3 just kind of raises the bar even that much more. This one came out in 2015, and Ip Man 4, I think, is the finale. I believe that came out either last year or within the last couple of years. And so there's a few years in between. So this one, takes place, I think, around the same time or maybe a little bit later than the second film did. They don't really make it that very clear based on the analysis. But it is, I think, also the one that has the most heart, if I could say that, because it deals with certain people losing family members and just kind of the mindset of you go through when you have a close person that, someone that you're really close with going through a difficult time. Donnie Yen, I think, really is able to show off his acting chops in this film specifically, though I wouldn't say that it's anything like Oscar-worthy by any means, but it's just really cool to see him be able to do, performances that are not just the stoic martial artsy stuff, but actually, really person-to-person interactions as well. And it's, again, I think it's a very good time. And this one also has a lot of different points going on. Like, there's so many different, I feel like, sub-stories that's going on in this movie, with the final real main story being the Ip Man facing off against another martial artist who claims to be the true king and the true expert in Wing Chun, and they have a really awesome final fight scene as well. And just, again, a lot of really cool fight scenes. I think that this has the best fight scenes. Ip Man 1 has the best overall story with some good fighting. Ip Man 2, I think, is overall the weakest. There's definitely a lot of good fight scenes in here, for sure. However, as I mentioned before, there's definitely this sense of nationalism in it. But if I had to grade these films, in fact, I would probably include them all in the same grade. I would give all of them together a C+. And the reason why is because the objective fill elements, I think, are problematic. Again, there's a lot of pacing issues, editing issues. Also, I think I would say the biggest issue that really doesn't get addressed or fixed until Ip Man 3, where it wasn't nearly as bad, is there is some really serious ADR going on in these movies. At first, I was like, wait a minute, am I listening to a different language track? Is this not in the original? I think the original language was either in Mandarin or Cantonese, perhaps. Let me try and see if I can confirm that with IMDb, which can be really great if you had it right in front of me, and I'm sure it might be right in front of me, and I'm just not looking at it. But of course, IMDb is not the great site that it once was, so I'm not saying that, but it is, again, based in China, and so it uses a local language for the dialogue. However, I went through all of the different language options, and it still came back, basically, unless I got to English, where it became a very obvious dub of the language. It just seemed like things weren't matching up. The mouth and the words were not actually matching up, even though they were saying the same thing. Again, I actually had to pay attention and say, is that what the person just pronounced? And sure enough, it was, but it was off in the first two movies, and it just drove me crazy. Like, things like that, I think, are easy things to solve and easy things to fix, and so that's why, again, overall, I think that the objective quality to these films is definitely lacking in a lot of different ways. However, the fighting, I think, definitely makes up for the most of it. To make these three films, I think, a very enjoyable experience, especially if you don't mind reading subtitles. Again, you could go the route of watching the dubbed version with the English, but don't be that person. Don't be one of those guys. Watch it in the original language. However, I will say you will probably be driven crazy in the first and second film because it just doesn't match up all the time, and it just sounds like they ADR'd it, meaning that they came in post-production and said the lines again in a microphone and then planted it into the movie. If you want a good example of ADR, watch The Room. There's several lines said by Tommy Wiseau that he didn't say in the actual frame, but they had to go back in time to actually fix. Ip Man 3 fixed that for the most part, which is pretty good. However, as I mentioned, this does suffer from some story element issues as well. So again, Ip Man 1, I think, would be the best. Ip Man 3, if I had to give individual grades, I'd probably give Ip Man 1 a B. I'd probably give this one a solid C+, and then Ip Man 2, I'd probably give a C- to. And so again, overall, I think I'd give the entire series overall a C+. Very good time. Anyway, have you seen Ip Man 1, 2, 3, or even 4? Do you think that I should try and find a copy of Ip Man 4 to review? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, hit that subscribe. It helps out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my November Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Albertus Magnus, Animation Commentator, Brian P., David Bobrizik, Dion, Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, Hail Father, Father Damian Cook, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Hunker Chunky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jay, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Kenneth Camille, Laura Story ×2, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Outpost Dyer, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, or Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe, and Garrett Searles and Cash the Butcher. Thank you all for being my Patreon members, and a shout out, of course, to my Subscribe Star members, Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, Darkstar57, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, J. Rod the Beer Guru, Nabadan G. Adams, and ZK-Man, and Andrew Hoyle. Thank you to my Subscribe Star and Patreon members for supporting me for this month. I hope that you are enjoying your perks of getting access to things like a podcast, to giveaways, and also, of course, to other exclusive content. I know I've fallen a little bit behind with the birth of baby Thor, and so I thank you very much for your patience and, of course, for your continued support. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.